Sunshine and shadows, a tale of contrasts where light and dark dance in an eternal embrace. The midday sun beat down relentlessly, casting a golden hue over the landscape. The heat was palpable, almost tangible, as if the very air was alive with energy. Dust swirled, dancing with the heat, creating a mesmerizing ballet of particles that shimmered in the sunlight. It was a scene both beautiful and harsh, a testament to the raw power of nature. Sarah, her camera slung around her neck, smiled broadly. She felt a sense of exhilaration, a thrill that came from being in a place so different from her own. The vibrant colours, the lively sounds, the rich smells. It was all so intoxicating. This was Africa. Vibrant, alive, everything she'd imagined and more. The market was a riot of colours and sounds, a sensory overload that left her breathless. She felt like she was in the heart of the world where life pulsed with an intensity she had never known. She had come seeking adventure, a break from her predictable life back home. The monotony of her daily routine had driven her to seek out something more, something that would make her feel alive again. But beneath the surface, a current of unease stirred. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A feeling that something was not quite right, that danger lurked just out of sight. Perhaps it was the man who had watched her from the market stall, eyes dark and unreadable. His gaze had followed her, lingering just a moment too long, sending a shiver down her spine. Or maybe it was just the heat playing tricks on her mind, distorting her perceptions and making her see things that weren't really there. The heat waves rising from the ground created a mirage, a distorted view of reality. She continued walking, each step taking her deeper into the labyrinthine streets. The narrow alleys twisted and turned, leading her further away from the bustling market and into a maze of shadows. The crowd thinned, the sounds of the market fading into the distance. An unsettling silence descended, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a bird. She checked her map, a knot of worry tightening in her stomach. Lost. She was lost. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut, leaving her breathless and disoriented. Turning back, Sarah realized with a jolt that the friendly faces of the market were gone. The vibrant life that had surrounded her just moments ago had vanished, replaced by an eerie stillness, replaced by shadows and watchful eyes. She felt their gaze on her, a silent, oppressive presence that made her skin crawl. She was alone, truly alone in a place that had suddenly become alien and threatening. A wrong turn. Panic flared hot and sharp. She quickened her pace, heart hammering against her ribs. Each turn seemed to lead her further astray. A dark alleyway materialized, offering a shortcut. She hesitated, the air thick with the stench of garbage and something else. Fear. A hand clamped over her mouth, stifling her scream. Rough hands, smelling of sweat and something acrid, pulled her into the darkness. She struggled, kicking, scratching, but it was no use. Her camera clattered to the ground, the lens staring up at the unforgiving sky. Into the abyss. A black sack was thrown over her head, plunging her into a suffocating darkness. The world became a cacophony of muffled sounds and jarring movements. She was bundled into a vehicle, the engine roaring to life like a caged beast. Terror, cold and consuming, gripped her. Where were they taking her? Who were these people? Questions spun in her mind, each one more terrifying than the last. Time lost all meaning. Minutes stretched into an eternity of fear and uncertainty. Tears streamed down her face, a silent plea in the darkness. Days of terror. They kept her in a small, windowless room. The air was thick with the smell of mildew and despair. Days bled into nights, marked only by the meagre meals shoved through a slot in the door and the constant gnawing fear. Her captors remained faceless, their voices a chilling reminder of her helplessness. She thought of her family, her friends, their faces blurring through a haze of terror and tears. What would they think? Were they looking for her? Hope, fragile and flickering, became her only companion. Hope and the burning desire to survive. The weight of silence. Silence became her prison. The silence of not knowing her fate. The silence of being cut off from the world. The silence of her own voice choked by fear. She retreated inwards, finding solace in memories, in the echo of laughter and the warmth of love. She clung to these memories, tiny sparks of light in the overwhelming darkness. They reminded her of who she was, of the life that waited beyond the confines of her prison. They fueled her will to survive, to endure, to escape the nightmare that had become her reality. A glimmer of hope. One day, a different voice broke through the monotony of her captivity. A woman's voice, softer, laced with a hint of kindness. She brought extra food, a blanket, and spoke to Sarah in broken English. She didn't reveal much, but the compassion in her eyes spoke volumes. There was something else, a subtle shift in the air, a tension, an anticipation. Were they negotiating her release? Was this the beginning of the end of her ordeal? Hope, dormant for so long, began to blossom anew. Faces of captivity. Each face tells a story, a narrative woven with threads of pain, resilience, and an unyielding will to survive. She started to see her captors as more than just shadows. They were human, with their own fears and dreams, trapped in a cycle of violence and despair. There was the young one, his eyes filled with a mixture of fear and bravado. He was just a boy, thrust into a world of brutality, trying to find his place. The older one, his face etched with a harshness that spoke of a life lived on the edge. His scars were not just physical, but emotional, each one a testament to the battles he had fought. And the woman, her gaze a mix of pity and resignation. She had seen too much, endured too much, and yet there was a flicker of hope in her eyes, a glimmer of humanity that refused to be extinguished. They were not monsters, not in the traditional sense. They were victims of circumstance, caught in a web of poverty, violence, and systemic failure. They were products of their environment, driven by desperation, poverty, and a system that had failed them. Their actions, while unforgivable, were understandable in the context of their harsh realities. Understanding this didn't excuse their actions, but it added a layer of complexity to the already tangled web of emotions. It made her question her own beliefs, her own judgments, and the very nature of good and evil. In the end, she realized that captivity was not just a physical state, but a mental and emotional one as well. And in understanding her captors, she found a way to understand herself. The price of freedom. The day of her release dawned bright and clear. The air crackled with the tension she had come to recognize. Blindfolded, she was bundled into a vehicle, the familiar terror clawing at her throat. The drive seemed to take forever, each bump in the road sending a jolt of fear through her. Then, silence. The blindfold was removed, and she blinked in the harsh sunlight. She was in a bustling marketplace, the sights and smells overwhelming after the sensory deprivation of her captivity. Her release had been negotiated, a price paid. But what was the cost of her freedom? Homecoming. Stepping off the plane, the crisp air of home filled her lungs. It was a sensation she never thought she'd experience again. Tears streamed down her face as she embraced her family, their arms a haven of safety and love. The world felt surreal, the colors too bright, the sounds too loud. She was safe, but the journey had irrevocably changed her. The carefree girl who had embarked on that adventure was gone, replaced by a woman tempered by fear and resilience. The world seemed both familiar and alien, a constant reminder of the fragility of life and the preciousness of freedom. Scars on the soul. These are the marks that are not visible to the naked eye, yet they run deeper than any physical wound ever could. The physical scars of her ordeal faded, but the emotional ones lingered. The nightmares that haunted her sleep, the fear of the dark that crept into her every evening, the constant looking over her shoulder. These were the invisible souvenirs of her captivity. She sought therapy, hoping to find a way to mend her fractured spirit. In the quiet confines of a therapist's office, she found solace in sharing her story, in reclaiming her voice. The support group meetings became a sanctuary where she could connect with others who understood her pain. She learned to navigate her new reality, to find strength in her vulnerability. Each day was a step forward, a small victory in her journey of healing. She began to find joy in the everyday moments, to laugh with friends, and to savor the beauty of a sunset. She learned to appreciate the simple things she had once taken for granted, the scent of flowers in a garden, the sound of children playing. But a part of her would forever remain in that small, dark room, a place where time stood still and the shadows of her past loomed large. It was a reminder of the darkness that resides in the human heart, a testament to the pain she endured. Yet it was also a symbol of her indomitable spirit, the unyielding strength that allowed her to survive and rise above it. Her journey was far from over, but with each passing day she grew stronger, more resilient and more determined to embrace the light that lay ahead.